Hey everybody, this is Jonathan Kersing with the Pittsburgh Technology Council, Tech Vibe Radio, bringing you the Tech Vibe one mic stand. And I tell you what, during today's conversation, I might get a little hungry because we're talking about supply chains for restaurants. Just supply chains in general just kind of blow my mind because it's a very complicated thing to get that cheeseburger through the drive-through window this day and age. Like they just don't appear. And there are really cool companies like SCA Technologies that really make that happen for restaurants. They are like the secret sauce. They are the magic behind restaurants being able to get you food when you want it. And we're talking to Vishy Visweswaran today. Vishy, thanks for hanging out with us. I really do appreciate it. I think this is a fascinating conversation. I've been a huge fan of SCAs for years because the problems that you guys solve are super complex and a little tasty sometimes too.
Absolutely, Jonathan. I'm thrilled to be here. I know we've had conversations a couple of times in the past, and obviously very different circumstances back in the studios at Green Tree. But hey,
Absolutely.
You know what? We roll with the times, right?
Back when we could be in the studio together, right?
Yeah. Can't wait to get back in there.
I remember those days. Yes, they seem so long ago, but we'll get there again. I swear. So give us a little bit about SCA and what you guys do. I don't do it justice when I say restaurant supply chain. You can give our listeners and viewers a little more detail. What's going on with SCA these days?
Absolutely. So I am Vishy Visweswaran. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at SCA. We are a private company. We started in '99. We have our headquarters in Pittsburgh in Green Tree.
Exactly.
We have a couple of offices in Chicago as well as in India. And what we've been doing all this time is we provide a collaborative real-time platform on the cloud, which really helps food companies to manage their supply chain. And I'll get to the supply chain in a minute, but the companies we're talking about could be restaurant chains such as McDonald's and Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, KFC, etc.
Yeah, you're working with big companies here. I mean, those are the brands, right?
Absolutely. And we are also talking about several hundred food manufacturers and distributors, you name it, the likes of Conagra and Tyson and Cargill, as well as many small companies which are family-owned, farms, etc., which have been in business for many, many years that people may not even know about.
Exactly.
And really, what they use our platform for is to collectively manage the food supply by the time it gets to the consumer. And what that means is, figuring out where to get the products from, what is it going to cost them, how to get it into the stores, who's going to make what products and ship it to what locations, giving them the full visibility from what we call farm to fork.
Right.
Farm on the one side, you got your manufacturers, distributors, and ultimately the consumer on the other side.
Right.
The goal as always is how we get them to better decision-making in real time, better planning, better forecasting, and hopefully to improve how they run the business.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, it helps them save money, be more efficient, get their customers what they want when they want it. No one wants to show up for the big burrito special when that burrito is not going to be there. That's always disappointing. And so you need a supply chain to get that there. Maybe give our listeners a little bit about what exactly is a supply chain for those that are not in the know?
Absolutely. I know it's a very hot phrase that's bandied about everywhere in the news. You can't go past an article without talking about supply chain.
Yeah.
Quite simply, think of it like the network of all the manufacturers and distributors that make the various ingredients that when you go out to a restaurant and buy something, or when you go to a grocery store and buy either prepackaged goods or ready-to-eat goods, or even just your raw ingredients, all the things that go towards getting it to that point, right? To give you a real example, right? So you mentioned burgers. So let's say you go to a restaurant. In the good old days, you would go, walk up the counter and order a burger and walk out. Today, you do it with a drive-through or perhaps even delivery. Let's say you're getting a burger, a fries, a drink in a bag, right?
Right.
You may not realize it, but there's well over a dozen ingredients that's built in there, right? You got a bun, you got meats, you've got slices of cheese, you've got tomatoes, lettuce, onions, fries, the drink, obviously the packaging could be a clamshell, could be.
See, I told you I'd get hungry here in this conversation.
Sorry?
I told you I'd get hungry listening to this conversation.
I know. Yeah. But you really, when you think about that, there's many dozen suppliers that might be involved in making all the ingredients for just that one food item that we buy, right? And it's a very complex business. These people, these suppliers, these distributors, they're all located all over the country. You're sitting in Pittsburgh, I'm sitting in Evanston next to Chicago. We may not see it, but all the people we're hearing about in Idaho and Montana and Iowa and places like that, that's where a lot of the food is being manufactured, the beef and things like that. Very complex business, and particularly now in the whole COVID-19 situation, I think it's even more complex.
That's why I was so excited when you guys reached out to me, because I was like, oh my goodness, like if there's anyone to talk to right now, it is SCA Technologies, because I mean, the COVID-19 crisis has just literally, as we've all known, go to a grocery store and try to get exactly what you want. I know restaurants obviously now not really only half in business. It's completely just has to just strangle supply chains at this point. And I'm like, if anything can help these supply chains, it's SCA Technologies. So what are we seeing out there right now with real impact from COVID-19 with supply chains and restaurants and so forth?
Yeah, I think restaurants are at the forefront a little bit, like when you think of a hurricane and you see the beaches are the first wave that get hit, and then it goes inland. Think of the restaurants as that first wave out there. It's all been in the news, obviously, from your local restaurants to your big chains. With all the stay-at-home orders, all dining areas are shut, only takeout and delivery today, right? And when you think about the impact to these guys, it's staggering. I mean, at a minimum, you're seeing 30 to 40% reduction in sales for your chains and your stores, which are completely shut, to something as extreme as, I'll give you an example, Landry's, which is a well-known chain, and obviously they own a bunch of chains like Martin's and Baba Gum's and the Landry's Steakhouse, seafood places, and so on. Their CEOs out there talking about their business is down 95%.
Oh, I mean, that's just like, you're not in business at that point. I mean,
they had to furlough pretty much their entire set of employees. We're talking tens of thousands, right? The only positive I would say is the pizza category, which, well, we all know we love pizza. We are used to getting it delivered. So that's one category that's a go-to place for consumers, right? So that is flourishing. Our customer, Pizza Hut, Domino's and Papa John's and Little Caesars and so on. And other people who might be strong in delivery are also
exactly. And they've had that tradition of delivering, and people just know to call it because it's easy, and it's you're not thinking to call up a Landry's in order to get a steak and have it delivered to your house. You're going to get that pepperoni pizza.
Yeah, and these other companies, as well as smaller chains and smaller restaurants, don't really have the art of delivery, especially with distancing down to an art, right? Yeah. That's a challenging situation. So I would say many of them are sadly in day-to-day survival mode. I mean, what we have heard is about 10% of restaurants have already shut down permanently. By the end of the year, might be as much as 30%. That's the forecast right now.
Oh, that's terrible.
That's terrible. When you think about it, obviously everybody knows several restaurants in the neighborhood that's going to be shut down or is suffering. But you're talking about big chains, California Pizza Kitchen, Logan's Roadhouse, Landry's, people like that. Many of them are contemplating bankruptcy. I mean, interestingly, you're seeing people like Panera's now switching to selling groceries.
I was going to ask you about that, because now that's going to complicate supply chains even more. Someone who was not in that supply chain is now getting into that supply chain, so they can have groceries to keep their operations afloat and get money.
Yeah. I mean, that's been the other bright spot, is everybody's grocery chains are doing fantastically. So now the restaurants are trying to get in on that action a little bit to make up for the lost sales with their traditional items.
Right.
I think what we're also seeing is a lot of companies have just slimmed down their menus, going back to the tried and trusted items that people know them for. They've stopped innovating. Obviously, they stopped doing all the, restaurant renovations and remodels and things like that. So pretty much the front of the industry has somewhat ground to a halt, other than for the delivery as well as the drive-through and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've noticed that myself. Just many restaurants I like to have been ordering from, you go on their online menu and it's a pared down menu. It's got the basics on it. They got to keep things tight as far as that is. Absolutely. So, I mean,
the other piece I would say is, the way restaurants are set up today in this country anyway, they don't make a lot in-house, right? They rely on these suppliers. They rely on the supply chain to get all these ingredients. And we are now starting to see that supply chain really start to get challenged. I mean, I'm sure it's all out in the news. There's
Of
probably
course.
22, 23 meat plants that are closed now.
I
About
know. It's like, wow.
25% of the pork supply is now shut down.
Right.
And you're seeing these, all signs are that there's going to be a big meat shortage. And we're also seeing farmers out in Salinas and elsewhere are holding off on planting for the summer and fall season. And if and when consumers are back in stores and restaurants, you're going to see a produce shortage. You're going to see a
Don't
shortage of
say that.
lettuce,
I know
tomatoes.
this is like frightening. Because I mean, we
Uh,
actually, you're seeing some waves of things we could be seeing in the next 3 to 6 months based on this, which I think is just absolutely, it's like, oh my goodness. So,
Absolutely. And sadly, I would say it's not something that's going to go away real soon.
no, I think these things we're going to be living with for quite a while. But I think, I mean, obviously, I think an advantage here to some of these companies is using a technology like what SCA has, because they know they can really optimize, right? And they can really just fine tune everything so they can really be the best they can be and get access to things, knowing when they're going to get them, having that insight on the supply chains, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, if you go back to this point that, restaurants are in trouble by and large, they're running out of money. It's all about maintaining cash flow right now, for whether they're big or small, does not matter.
Right.
Right? Even the big ones are fast depleting whatever cash reserves they had. So that's the first priority. They got to find ways to cut costs, and you can see them simplifying the menu, but you also have to optimize your supply, as you just pointed out. It's interesting that sadly, this situation is pointing out a lot of limitations in how the food supply chain was set up. Right? Historically, this is an industry that sees a lot of volatility. When you walk into a restaurant, if you see an LTO, a limited time offer, or a promotion that somebody's trying to sell 2 for 1, etc.,
Okay.
they don't necessarily know how much they will sell.
Huh.
But historically, they've always relied on suppliers and distributors to manage that uncertainty. So they've ended up with not too many choices in terms of supply.
Huh.
What you're
Interesting.
seeing today, though, is that's coming back to bite them, because as that supply chain starts going down, the number of choices out there for meats, for produce, for cheeses, things like that will
Right.
start to dwindle. And you're going to have not just this huge volatility on the demand side, what are consumers going to buy,
Right.
but also on the supply side, right? And that is interesting because, you would think that this is an industry that's used to dealing with it, but it's way past something that even they can deal with. Right? And so there's a real need right now for them to really reevaluate and say, how do we run this business? How do we run our supply chain? It's all about being more nimble, more flexible. I'll give you an example, right? One
Yeah.
of the
Please
chains
do.
that we talked to, um, like everybody, they were seeing huge drops in sales late March, early April, selling all kinds of products. And then, of course, the emergency funding that Congress passed went through, and people started getting these paychecks, right? Now you expect that they're going to go out and spend some of that money, the $1,200 checks and so on, which was
You
badly needed,
can't.
right? But amazingly, they started seeing this incredible demand for some of their products, like pork-based products. And now with all the
Mhm.
situation with the pork supply, they're faced with a situation where they're running out of product and they don't have enough to sell. And just 3 or 4 weeks ago, nobody would have thought they would be in that situation given how badly sales were dropping.
Right.
So it really
Interesting.
is
Right.
day to day. You're going to have to replan, reforecast, and you know reimagine your business almost every day because things are changing so fast, right? And this is
Absolutely.
all coming at a time when were already stretched on their dollars. You had a lot of chains go out and put huge amounts of money into remodeling, renovating their restaurants and
Hmm.
making them look nicer. They don't have a lot of money on their balance sheet anymore to put towards these kind of emergency measures, right? So
Exactly. Exactly.
tough time for them. Yeah.
Oh, I know. It's just crazy all the way around. I mean, give us maybe a little more detail how, like, if a restaurant chain or the restaurant itself is using SCA technology, how it can really tighten things up and really just focus and be able to tap into the resources and supplies that they need when they need it, and as you say, be able to almost change every day. It seems like, I'm assuming, using your
Yeah.
technology, that you're getting the most recent update as to what is out there and what's available, right?
Yeah. And sadly, I would say that this is something we've been passionate about for dozens of years, and we've
Mhm.
been, preaching about this for a long time. And perhaps it's the situation that makes people stick up and take notice. Um, The good news is that technology can be a huge enabler for what's going on right now. Because what you're talking about is being faster to respond, being able to get more visibility to what's out there, what's not out there in terms of supply, more collaboration, more efficient ways to run your business. And that's what our platform is designed to do. We're talking about, our platform allows your buyers, your sellers, the restaurant chains, the distributors, the suppliers to work collaboratively in real time to get visibility, to manage inventory and capacity, to identify supply alternatives, find ways to reduce costs. Maybe let's take an example where they're selling certain types of products and they see that there are some other ingredients they're not using today, which seem to be there's oversupply, there are lower prices. Maybe there's an opportunity to switch those ingredients. Or as you imagine, 1 or 2 months from now, as slowly the situation eases, and the country starts getting back to, not normal, but to some semblance of normal, different regions are going to open up at different times. What that will mean for a lot of these chains is that
Right.
they're going to have to keep changing their supply. Texas might open up one day, so you need a lot of supply going in there. Maybe they're going to have another outbreak a month or two down the road. They may shut down, and in the meantime, Illinois has opened back, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to need a lot more dynamic supply planning. So one of the things we are doing,
Okay.
and we're excited about this, is we are offering a free trial of our
That's what I'm
software
talking about. All right.
to
Okay. I like
companies
this.
that are right, because it's tough. This is not an industry that's used to working with technology, so we think it's appropriate for people to try it out to see what kind of benefits they might have. So we are actually offering it out there for people who are interested. They can go to our website, which is
Very cool. We'll put that in the liner
www.scatech.com.
notes of this for sure, so people can go there and check that out. Now, as far as
Exactly.
can even a small restaurant like tap into your supply chain into this technology?
Absolutely. I would say obviously the benefits are more as you get bigger in size, but
Okay.
the problems are pervasive. I think the 2 or 3 big things we bring to the table, right? The idea of real-time planning, forecasting, and updates to what's going on in your business is critical. Our system gives notifications, intelligent recommendations. These are things that when you're out there trying to put out the fires, it's great to have a system that will propose these things to you.
That's so cool. I just love it. Yeah.
And I keep going back to this. Sadly, it is a financial issue for all these companies, right? Everybody's trying to survive. And as you keep having to make these decisions more in a more dynamic way, you constantly have to be seeing what's the cost impact of what I'm doing? Are there any better alternatives out there? And you don't have weeks and months to do this, right? You have hours and days to pull the trigger on some of these changes. And when you think about how people are working today, out of their homes, with families around them, trying to do as well as they can, this is not an industry that was built for that.
No.
This is an industry
Exactly.
where, the guys on the restaurant side, the suppliers, the distributors, they're used to heavy degree of relationship-based, personal touch and face-to-face meetings and phone calls and emails and things like that. It's not very conducive to be doing that when you're sitting at home. Right?
Exactly.
What you really need is to be able to go to a platform like ours and say, hey, tell me what's going on. Let's be on the same page. Let's look at the information together so that we're not disputing what's actually going on. Let's talk about what comes next. Let's think about the alternatives, etc. Right? Exactly. Those are some of the things that our platform can bring in. So we're pretty excited, to see if, people will take advantage of that.
I just think it's so cool that you have a very powerful solution and you're offering that out to companies for restaurants to try out. It's just like, give it a shot, man. I just feel like, this is the way the world is moving and you have to pivot and move quickly. Your technology allows companies to do that because it keeps them plugged in. It's only getting more complex out there. So
it is. Yeah.
I say try. Anything else we haven't covered that people should know about SCA and about your tech or what's going on out there in general when it comes to
we have a lot of capabilities, right? I think
right
one of the things I would, and I don't, people can go to our website and find out a lot more. The one big impact we have seen over the years, because we are so focused on cost and what's out in the real world, and this time is better than almost any other time for people to focus on their costs and drive costs down because sales are, so far down, right? The
Right.
second thing I would say is that I would go back to this point that this industry is built on very slow decision making. And wherever people are using our technology, we are seeing where decisions that might take days or weeks or months can be done in hours and minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is so necessary today when things are so dynamic, right?
Exactly.
So it is a paradigm shift, I think, for a lot of people. But moving into the world as we are right now, having these more dynamic capabilities is critical.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm so glad we got to have this conversation. And I just think it's so cool that SCA does what it does. And I think I never ever get food and not think twice since I met you guys about what it takes for that burrito to get to my plate as far as that is. And thank you for taking the time, Vishy, to talk with us today. And I'm really, any restaurants are out here seeing this, please go to their site, check it out. And
Absolutely,
try it.
absolutely.
It's free.
Yes, it is a free trial, so please check us out, www.scatech.com. And
Excellent.
thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, Vishy. You're the
Good as
best.
always to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Take care.